The white pantsuit. The white pantsuit has been in trend for the past few years, but this year it really shined. Almost all big designers incorporated it in their runway shows. Kamala Harris, wearing her Carolina Herrera white suit to her acceptance speech, established it as the statement garment of 2020. Suddenly, in this context, this is not just an expensive white suit anymore. It's a political stance. But what is the story of the lady's white suit? Let's break it down. The suit. Joan of Arc, or Jeanne d'Arc, was the first female pop culture symbol and the first to cross-dress. Of course, in her case, there wasn't really a suit, but a war mail armor she put on not only to protect herself from harm in the battle, but against rape as well. Women started wearing suits on a daily basis in the late decade of the 19th century. It was actually a coat and long skirt ensemble. There were many types of costumes matching different activities. When going for a walk, you would put on a walking suit. When going for a riding suit, and so on. Everything went smooth until one day, Elizabeth Stanton visited her friend Amelia Bloomer in a costume made of wide loose trousers gathered at the ankle, topped by a flared coat that reached the knees. The costume has been previously introduced to her by her cousin Elizabeth Smith Miller, who saw it as a healthy garment that didn't restrict movement. Amelia Bloomer loved it, and they started wearing it in public. Soon, this novel garment was dubbed Bloomers. It was adopted by a few but brave women, most of them activists for women's rights, so Bloomers soon became a symbol of early feminism. Yet the Bloomers were short-lived. The feedback received from men and many women alike was discouraging. Men responded by caricatures meant to humiliate those who dared to wear them in public. Women in bloomers were depicted taking over activities assigned to men only, like smoking, drinking, even asking for the lover's hand in marriage, which automatically qualified them as being of loose morals and most of all incompetent. This first attempt at pants for women didn't catch on, but they re-entered fashion in the 1890s as bicycle attire. Yet there was an exception from the rule. When worn in conventionally accepted settings, for example when performing. Actress Sarah Bernhardt was among the first to wear pants. The pantsuit. And in came the 20s with the wild parties. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb gave way to a craze for Egypt. The young generation fell in love with tanning for the first time in history. The beach became the place to be in the summer, so the wide-legged beach pajamas entered fashion. But only as a resort wear, again in specific settings. Rushing into the 30s, women in pants are still an exception. We must note that oftentimes the women who wore it were very prominent and widely known figures. Marlene Dietrich in Morocco and Blonde Venus slammed the concept of gender-assigned dressing and put on a full tuxedo, top hat included, kissing a girl in the audience as well. It was again Marlene who would make a statement in yet another of her famous looks. This is her strolling along the street in a man's suit, looking almost like a mob leader flanked by her partners in crime. It is a direct and deliberate defiance of the men-imposed dressing rules on women. At the same time, this kindergarten teacher, Helen Hulick, was put in jail for 5 days for wearing pants or slacks when she went to court to testify against 2 burglary suspects. Things changed for a while during World War II. Many women joined factories, put on factory uniforms and overalls and stormed their husbands' closets in order to spice up their wardrobe during the shortage of textiles. But again, it was a short-lived moment when, for the first time, women felt like they can do it all while being comfortable. When women adopted the new type of pant, the form-fitting capri in the 50s, they did it mainly because fashionable women in the Capri Island wore it everywhere in town and they looked good while doing so. Audrey Hepburn was one of the first to sport them in movies and in public. Still, the capris were being worn mainly as leisure wear, at home or as they were in relaxed contexts, rarely in the office. The 60s was finally the time for this biased perception on clothing to be challenged. It took one young and talented designer to do it. In 1966, Yves Saint Laurent introduced le smoking. And no one donned the pantsuit in the 60s better than Twiggy. It was in the 70s and 80s that women were really free and even encouraged, at least by their female colleagues, to wear suits in the office. But it was not a fashion statement. Women mainly did it in order to be taken seriously at their jobs by their male colleagues, as well as a means to avoiding sexual and verbal harassment at the workplace. Most of all, women needed the pantsuit. The world was changing, things were starting to move faster, so women needed practical and comfortable clothes to keep on. Movies like Working Girl speak exactly about this new, financially independent woman who works hard and has the right to take the credit for her merit and be respected in the workplace. Today, any successful woman, especially one working in a corporate environment, is expected to own at least one pantsuit. We have seen the pantsuit has a sinuous yet successful journey into women's wardrobe. But how about the white pantsuit? Let's look a bit at the color itself. White is probably the most dichotomous color, or rather non-color. It is a classic but also a standout, loved both by minimalists and by those trying to look expensive. It is noble and elegant, and it's at its best when it comes in contrast with black. For a color that women and men alike rarely wear in full, especially in a suit, it is a color subordinate to rules. It has its moment to shine and moments when it's forbidden. It is a celebratory color, but also a color of grief. Much loved by the dandies for its elegant yet decadent nature, and by the Zoots for its power to send their message of rebellion, white is the color of the 70s short-lived disco moment and of mafia leaders. But it can also be sterile, austere and cold. In movies, we can only catch glimpses of it, and on very few occasions is it a definitory color for a female character's style. To understand the lady's white pantsuit, we must look at men attire. When a man wears a white pantsuit, it is a symbol of power. All male characters wearing it in cinema subordinate the other characters. Besides brides, first thing we associate it with is gangsters. And the fact is that both real mafia leaders like Al Capone and fictional ones like The Godfather or Scarface have it in their wardrobe. Given their activities, these costumes show the amount of money they are willing to pay for new clothes over and over again. It also shows a man that is in trend with the times and up to date with everything, including fashion. Let's take Jay Gatsby for an example. When inviting Daisy for tea, he puts on a white suit because it's the ultimate luxury clothing of the time, showing how well he is doing in business. A variation of the white pantsuit is the classical combination of white blazer and black pants a la Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca or James Bond, again professional men who are very strong characters. Celebrities like Blake Lively, Tilda Swinton or Kate Blanchett are also in love with a white pantsuit. The white pantsuit gives a note of chic elegance and bold confidence while still conforming and being professional. The one to make the white pantsuit fashionable is the it girl of the 70s, Bianca Jagger. A women's rights activist herself, she made the white pantsuit her signature, even wearing a white suit, a skirt suit on that occasion, for her wedding to Mick Jagger. And she remains loyal to the white pantsuit even to this day. The white pantsuit has been a prominent visual discourse in politics for the past few years, but Kamala Harris's creamy white suit in the context of her inaugural speech cemented it as a symbolic attire of 2020. This pantsuit equals power and empowerment, as this white becomes suffragette white. Let's analyze her outfit. First, the suit itself. The fact that Harris's staff opted for a designer of immigrant descent was meant as a way of supporting not only the work of an immigrant, but the cause of immigration itself, thus going back to the roots of the American civilization. It also represents the concept of being the first. Kamala Harris is the first woman, first South Asian, and first ever person of color to be elected as US Vice President. A first who, quoting Harris herself, stands on the shoulders of other firsts. Shirley Chisholm, who wore white as she became the first African-American woman elected to Congress in 1969, and then in 1972 when she announced her presidential bid. Geraldine Ferraro, the first ever woman to run for vice presidentship in the US, accepted her nomination in 1984 in white. Hillary Clinton also wore white pantsuits during her presidential campaign in 2016. The white pantsuit is also a form of protest. Women politicians wore white at Trump's joint address to Congress in 2017 to raise awareness on issues including reproductive rights and equal pay. And then again at the State Union address this year, paying homage to the suffragettes, as this year marks a century since the 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote. Early suffragettes adopted white in clothing as a symbol of moral purity, non-violence, sisterhood, and solidarity. Them coordinating their outfits while marching speaks about their commitment to the cause, and it is a declaration of conformity and femininity as understood at the time. The suffragettes embraced the gender roles assigned to them. They wore skirts and paid a great attention to their dressing. They were aware of the treatment they undeservingly received from the press, who depicted them as masculine, just as they did in the past with their bloomer-wearing predecessors, and wanted to visually deny those allegations. Kamala Harris wearing a pant instead of a skirt can be interpreted as a way of conformity to the dress code of the politician, but being at the same time a standout, while sending the message of being equal to her male colleagues. Other women politicians favor white too. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is one prominent example. She put it on several occasions when attending political events or when sending a message on her beliefs through mass media. Her featuring on the cover of Vanity Fair is memorable, while on the cover of the new comic series dedicated to her, she makes it clear her white pantsuit is her superhero cape. During the presidential campaign in 2016, the female members of the Trump family also opted for all-white outfits. Republican Tulsi Gabbard wore it in a dispute with Kamala Harris herself, while the white pantsuit is clearly Melania Trump's signature look. She wore it on so many occasions and is without a doubt the most stylish and elegant appearance in white. Now let's look a bit at the much discussed pussy bow. It was the former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher who set the trend for the pussy bow for women politicians. She liked it because, quote, bows were rather softening and pretty. If Coco Chanel fell for the pants in her youth, she did the same for the pussy bow when older, as she wanted to make this accessory more female-friendly. It is not a coincidence that Yves Saint Laurent accessorized his smoking with a pussy bow. It was the perfect way of validating this male-inherited item of clothing as a female must-have and statement garment. Princess Diana famously matched her blue suit with a white pussy bow on her engagement to Prince Charles. The First Lady wore it too on two important occasions. In 2016, after the grab them by their pussy remark by the president, and in 2018 when she was discussing cyberbullying. And finally, the pearls. In historic paintings of aristocracy, pearls are a central detail. The one to make the pearl her statement of power and purity is Queen Elizabeth I. In her portraits, pearls play an important political role. They stand for purity, especially given their placement over the womb, thus validating her position as both a pure woman and a strong leader. Later, the first ladies of the US made the pearl necklace their jewel to go. Kamala Harris herself has a tradition with pearls, wearing them on occasions since her graduation in a nod to her sorority. Her walking on the stage on the beat of "Work That" completed the message sent by her whole white outfit. Kamala Harris's white pantsuit cemented this garment as a symbol of power, professionalism, and standing out, all while standing up for women's rights. It definitely became part of the feminist language, and I believe it will continue to do so. I would love to hear your opinion on this unique garment, and if you have a personal story involving the white pantsuit, please share it with us. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, roll in style.